Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zheng here, and today I'm very excited to debut a new series on my channel called VGC Match Analysis. Basically what I'm going to do in this series is I'm going to take one of the stream matches from Regionals, Nationals, or Worlds, and then I'm going to commentate over the match, giving you guys my insight on all the games. To get started, I'll be doing some of my games from US Nationals, but if you guys really enjoyed this series and want to see more, I'm looking to expand and then eventually just commentate other games like the finals of Nationals, or maybe the finals of Worlds once that happens. So I'm really excited to do this. It's not something I have planned on a schedule right now, but if a lot of you guys enjoy it and want to see more, then I might, do it on a more consistent basis. So if you guys could show your support for this new series by leaving a like on the video and giving me any comments or feedback, I'd really appreciate it. I think it's a pretty helpful way to learn, and this way you guys will get to see how I think about the top players and their plays, but in particular, my matches and how I go about my games in a tournament setting. So I'm excited to get started. The first match I'll be doing is my round 5 match against Chua at US Nationals, which took place a few weekends ago. Of course, you guys have seen Chua multiple times on this channel on Road to Ranked. He's one of the best players in the country and the world, and he's qualified for day 1 of Worlds. We ran into each other when we were both 4-0 in the Swiss run, so both of us needed 3 more wins in our next 5 rounds to advance to the second day. I always feel a bit nervous when I play a really good player this early on, but I had just beaten Wolfie Glick, so I definitely was feeling pretty confident going into my match against Paul. I saw his team, and I felt like I had a decent matchup as well. Paul was running a rain team of Politoad, Ludicolo, Aegislash, Salamence, Thundurus, and Terrakion. Meanwhile, I was running my sand team of Salamence, Aegislash, Tyranitar, Rotom, Amoonguss, and Landorus in Incarnate form. Going into game 1, I always want to basically give the safest leads possible. I don't want to take anything that's too risky into my lead matchup. So I figure let Salamence and Aegislash counters everything that Paul can have, and it gives me a good amount of options right from the start. So I just decide to lead with those two, with Tyranitar and Rotom Wash in the back, and I figure, this game obviously I'd like to win, but I'd also like to squeak out as much information as possible. For example, which Salamence is faster, what kind of Salamence that he's running, what item he has on Politoad, what item he has on Aegislash, does he carry Wide Guard, how fast is he with Aegislash, things like that. So once I see the lead matchup, I feel pretty decent here. He leads with Ludicolo and Salamence against my Salamence and Aegislash, and this is really scary right from the start because of the Salamence mirror match. For example, one potential play Paul could make is go for the Fake Out and the Draco Meteor or Dragon Pulse into my Salamence, which might just knock me out. So that's a possible play he could make, but I think the Protect from Salamence here was so obvious that I figured, what, I'm just gonna go straight for the attack here. I know Ludicolo at Salamence at -1 attack can still knock out Ludicolo, so I'm just gonna launch a Double Edge into that slot and Shadow Ball the Salamence slot. Worst comes to worst, he fakes out Draco Meteor Salamence, but I get a free Shadow Ball against his Salamence, and he switches out Salamence, so already I'm feeling pretty good. The play I was expecting Paul to make actually was for him to switch out into Politoad and go for a Scald onto the Aegislash, expecting my Salamence to protect, because then the Scarf Toad could go for an Ice Beam onto Salamence the following turn, and he would be in a really, really advantageous position. So I decide I'm just gonna go full offense this first turn and go straight for the attack. So Salamence Mega Evolves, and I see that Ludicolo doesn't fake out, and I'm silently really happy here as Salamence launches that Double Edge into Ludicolo and picks up the knockout there in 1 hit. Now, knocking out Ludicolo is really, really important in this matchup because I do have Rotom Wash and Tyranitar in the back. A Ludicolo in Rain basically beats my Rotom, beats my Tyranitar, and beats my Salamence, and that's a really, really big concern. So I get the Shadow Ball off here against Aegislash, and it does around 70%, so that was as perfect as a turn 1 as I could have gotten. I got a knockout on the biggest threat on my opponent's team and did tons of damage to the Politoad there as well. So he brings in Aegislash, and when you're playing against Aegislash, you always want to be really safe, because Aegislash is a Pokemon that can completely turn a match around even if you're down 3-4 or 2-4, and I know that right now my Aegislash is incredibly essential to this match, so I can't afford to just lose it immediately. I decided that here I'm going to play as safely as possible. At this point, I'm almost sure that his Politoad has Choice Scarf, that's the item that only makes sense, but I want to confirm it as well because, knowing the item for sure is always really, really helpful, but I decided that this next turn there's no reason to make any risky plays, because if he's Scarf with Politoad and if his Aegislash is faster, he can just Ice Beam and Shadow Ball me for a double knockout, and I'm not going to give Paul that opportunity to come back into this game right now. So I make the switch into Tyranitar. I know that it's a relatively free switch unless he Scalds and Flash Cannons that spot, but even then he won't knock me out unless he gets a burn because of the special defense increase. So I'm also going to King Shield her with Aegislash because I do not want to take a Shadow Ball to the face in the off chance that he's he's faster. And even if he's not faster, my Shadow Ball will do around 90% to him, assuming that he's relatively bulky. So I see his Politoed launch an Ice Beam into my Tyranitar slot. That almost confirms that it's Choice Scarf. At this point, I'm almost, 100% sure, because otherwise, you wouldn't go for an Ice Beam. You'd probably Protect there. So his Shadow Ball does go into my King Shield, and you can see there how if I just decided to stay in with Salamence and attack, and Aegislash did not King Shield there, I actually would have lost both my Pokemon, giving Paul a huge opportunity to come back into this match. However, I end up coming out the turn with basically not taking any damage, and now I know I can make a pretty safe prediction. The Politoed there on his side is most likely locked into Ice Beam here, so I figure he's probably going to want to switch it out into Salamence, because a Politoed locked into Ice Beam doesn't do anything against Tyranitar or Aegislash, unless you're really fishing for the freeze, but with 10% chance it's not very likely. And Politoed here can still offer something offensively if it switches out and switches back in, so I actually go straight for the Ice Beam onto the Politoed and the Shadow Ball onto his Aegislash slot, because I know Shadow Ball from his Aegislash probably won't knock out my Aegislash even if he is faster. So, right now I would like to play the information game and figure out what item his Aegislash has and how fast it is. Now, unfortunately, he King Shield for me here, so I don't figure out who's faster here. But obviously, you guys saw that he switched the Salamence in from the Politoed, and I'm very, very happy about that because my Tyranitar went for the Ice Beam into that slot. Of course, I ran Ice Beam instead of Ice Punch because I did, want to attack through the Intimidate, and you guys can't see there because the logo was actually placed right above the HP bar at first, but he was in Sandstorm KO range, and that was a damage calculation I had done going into National, so I knew even if I didn't get the damage where I wanted, Sandstorm would be able to finish it off. So Salamence goes down, and in this game I have taken no damage whatsoever other than one Life Orb hit from my Aegislash and one Ice Beam hit onto Tyranitar. He brings in Politoed once again, but at this point there's really not much he can do. One of the scary things of having a Scarf Pokemon as your last Pokemon is you're forced to lock into a move with it, and if your opponent has 3 or 4 Pokemon, then your opponent will probably have a couple Pokemon that are weak to that attack, but then Pokemon that can also resist it and beat it very comfortably. So I know that the Politoed can't do very much right now, and Paul is actually just going to forfeit that match. He doesn't want to reveal to me how fast his Aegislash is, what item it has, and I think that's a good play on his end there, because at that point there was really nothing he could have done to come back into that one. So I take game 1 very cleanly, and that's as good as a game 1 as you could ask for, especially against a World's Caliber player like Paul. So going into game 2, I figure I probably want to make an adjustment or two. I decide, maybe instead of leading Aegislash, I want to lead with Tyranitar here, because Tyranitar puts in some pressure. He's probably not going to go with his Rain leads here, so if he leads with Thundurus, which I'm expecting him to, then Tyranitar can just Rock Slide him immediately. So I think Salamence and Tyranitar, this time with Aegislash and Rotom in the back, is a pretty decent combination. Once again, no reason to bring Landorus Incarnate Form or Mungus. In the last game, all 4 of my Pokemon dealt with his 4 Pokemon well enough. So Paul leads with Thundurus and Aegislash here, and this is alright, but not the best here, because he has a bunch of combinations and moves right from the start like he can go for. Now, even though this team doesn't have a major weakness to Thundurus, he's able to Thunder Wave the majority of my team. I don't have great switch-ins to it, and without bringing a Mungus, which was my main Pokemon that I would use to, redirect Thunder Waves away or Will-O-Wisps away, he's free to just Thunder Wave around. Now, with Tyranitar having a Choice Scarf and Aegislash having King Shield instead of, say, obviously Protect, he can Thunder Wave that slot freely, so I know that Paul here basically has a huge opportunity to get Thunder Waves right from the beginning. I also don't know whether his Aegislash has Wide Guard or not, so at this first turn, I'm really fearing the Wide Guard Thunder Wave play because my team basically relies on spread attacks. Now, in retrospect, a good play I could have potentially made is Draco Meteor into Thundurus and Ice Beaming / assurancing it, but instead I'm just going to switch out my Tyranitar into Rotom because I'm predicting the Thunder Wave in that slot. So this is not a very good play on my end, because Salamence and Rotom don't do very much against an Aegislash and the Thundurus. Aegislash here is really comfortable right now. So Salamence goes for the Protect because I just wanted to get my Rotom in for free, which I'm able to do as Aegislash goes for the King Shield. Good play on Paul's end there because I was considering going for the Assurance onto that slot, as Thundurus here launches the Thunder Wave onto Salamence, and I know that I'm able to at least escape the first turn without taking any damage or paralysis, but now I'm in a really awkward position because his Aegislash is in a very, very nice position right now, being able to just Shadow Ball. I can't knock him out. I don't have a Fire type attack on the Salamence or Earthquake, and Rotom doesn't have a great way to hit it for huge amounts of damage either. So this next turn, I basically want to eliminate the Thundurus as quickly as possible, but At this point, I'm already thinking, wow, I've fallen down a huge amount just because he had a great lead matchup, and if I just went for Rock Slide there onto Thundurus and doubled up onto that slot, I would be definitely ahead in this game, but I played safe there trying to scout for the wide guard. Unfortunately didn't find it, so I still don't know whether he carries it or not, and now offensively I'm even in a worse position than I was a turn ago. So in retrospect, maybe doubling up on Thundurus with the Draco and Ice Punch would have been the play, since you know, I would have been able to at least just try to knock out it immediately, and Thundurus there probably would have wanted to launch a Thunder Wave. So Paul's going to go for the Thunder Wave this time onto Salamence, and unfortunately with Aegislash and Tyranitar in the back, I do not have a great switch into this Thunder Wave. I decide I'm going to double up on his Thundurus, trying to knock it out with the Draco Meteor and Thunderbolt combination. So Draco Meteor fortunately connects with the Thundurus through the paralysis, but you see there, Thundurus is quite bulky there, takes that very well. And this actually ironically takes me back to VGC 2012 when Paul and I played at US Nationals in top 4, where his Salamence Draco'd my Thundurus and I survived 3 Draco Meteors. So Thunderbolt here unfortunately doesn't knock out the Thundurus, and I'm thinking to myself, maybe I should have Hydro Pump there because I would have, you know, had to risk dealing with the miss, but then I would have knocked it out and then he couldn't spread paralysis anymore. I also realized that I've messed up a huge amount in this game because Salamence here doesn't now outspeed the Ludicolo even with Sanda because I am paralyzed, and that's a huge deal here because his Ludicolo is a major threat to my team. So we kind of trade off damage there, but Paul probably gets the advantage, and I'm still feeling alright in this match, but I think this next turn I definitely didn't make the best play possible. I was thinking to myself, maybe if I could pick up a knockout with Hydro Pump onto Aegislash, I don't have to worry about it, and then Tyranitar can come in freely and get Rock Slides off, but his Thundurus launches a Swagger, and this is a real throwback to VGC 2013 at the World Championship. So at this point I'm crossing my fingers, but I know I went for the Hydro Pump onto Aegislash instead of the Thunderbolt. So Rotom here is confused and gets the Hydro Pump off, but misses the Aegislash. So you can see me react there a little bit, bending back in my seat as his Aegislash goes for the Flash Cannon onto Salamence. Now I didn't want to make the switch there because I didn't know what Paul would go for with the Aegislash, and I couldn't afford losing my Tyranitar or Aegislash at this point. But I'm really kicking myself for that last turn because Hydro Pump wouldn't have knocked out Aegislash most likely. Thunderbolt would have eliminated his Thundurus and gotten rid of the one Pokemon that really, you know, gives my team a huge amount of trouble right now. So I probably made 2 misplays up until this point, and that's not Hydro Pumping Thundurus earlier on and not Thunderbolting there, and really just it's really looking great for me right now. Losing Salamence before he gets to do very much is kind of a big problem because Salamence is kind of essential in this matchup. Being able to one-hit KO Ludicolo and Salamence and do a ton of damage to the potential Terrakion in the back is a big thing, and you know, that's just not the case here. So I bring in my Aegislash here, but things are not looking good for me at all right now because Aegislash can get Thunder Waved or Swaggered even through King Shield, and this turn I'm going to go for the King Shield here because I suspect that his Aegislash is probably going to King Shield as well. Now in retrospect, I also could have probably doubled up onto his Thundurus with a Thunderbolt and Shadow Ball if I was predicting the King Shield from his Aegislash. So you know, I didn't want to lose my Aegislash at this point. I wanted to play as safely as possible, so I figure if I King Shield with my Aegislash and I Thunderbolt to knock out his Thundurus, at least I bring the game back to 3-3. And of course, it's still a huge mountain to climb at that point, but you know, I need to do whatever I can to get back into this match. So my Aegislash King Shield, and his goes for the King Shield as well, though interesting to know that mine was faster than his. So most likely my Aegislash here is faster unless we speed tie, but I ran, you know, a specific amount of speed EVs on my Aegislash. So his Thundurus makes the best play possible, goes for the Thunder Wave. Paul knows at this point that that Thunder Wave either guarantee paralyzes my Aegislash or my Tyranitar in the back. And Rotom here unfortunately actually hits itself in Confusion, which is kind of a big deal here because that Thundurus gets to stick around for one more turn. So I also probably could have doubled up into the Thundurus slot there to try to knock it out because now Paul gets one more turn with Thundurus, and now you guys can see how much me going for Thunderbolt instead of Hydro Pump mattered on that Thundurus. So I was playing safe there to get the insured damage, but you know, I should have switched the moves up. Instead of going for the Hydro Pump on Aegislash, I should have went for a Thunderbolt, and instead of Thunderbolting the Thundurus, probably should have just risked the miss and went for the knockout there with Hydro Pump. So his Thundurus launches the Thunderbolt onto my Aegislash as my Rotom manages to attack through Confusion, but you can see there I'm shaking my head because I know his Aegislash doubled up onto my Aegislash. So you know, one play I could have made was switching out into the Tyranitar there, but I figured Paul might predict that and Thunder Wave that slot or Flash Cannon, but nope. Paul just goes for the safest play possible, doubling it up with a Thunderbolt and Shadow Ball because he knows at this point he's already up, and even if I switch into Tyranitar and Rotom Wash can't do very much to an Aegislash when Aegislash can King Shield. So Sandstorm goes down, but this is an absolutely dominated game by Paul. He has done everything right here, and I have just made couple of small misplays here and there, didn't lead well right from the start. Still don't know whether he has wide guard or not on that Aegislash either, which is kind of a, big concern here. And I know that I bring in the Tyranitar here, but all he has to do is switch out into Politoed and, go for an attack. So at this point I have to hope maybe he doesn't have Politoed in the back. That would be kind of nice. And so I decided to Rock Slide and Thunderbolt, figuring that Aegislash is probably going to want to switch out here. He does switch out Aegislash into Politoed, but at this point there was no way for me to actually win the game. I guess unless I went for a Thunderbolt onto the Ludicolo hoping for a Paralysis, since I know it most likely carries Assault Vest, so I won't be able to knock it out here. So Tyranitar connects with the Rock Slide, but even a flinch onto Ludicolo won't save me, because now that Rain is up, Ludicolo basically beats both of my Pokemon one-on-one, or two-on-one really. So Thunderbolt comes out, knocks out the Politoed, so at least I managed to pick up 2 knockouts in this game, but at what cost, right? Paul was never basically behind in this game. He was ahead, 1 step ahead of me the entirety of the match. Scald comes out, picks up the KO onto Tyranitar, and that's basically going to be game. Because of the fact that I lost Salamence earlier on and that I was paralyzed without it being in sand, I have no way to knock out this Ludicolo. My best ways of doing damage to this Ludicolo are Rock Slide with Tyranitar, Shadow Ball with Aegislash, and Double Edge / Hyper Voice from Salamence. So he's going to go for the Giga Drain here. I decide I'm just going to play it out. I want to figure out how much damage Giga Drain does to me. So I know that it actually does 92 damage to me. So it doesn't pick up the knockout there. I'm not sure what the damage roll there was, but at that point there was no reason for me to give up. I'm just going to figure out damage calc, see how much I can do with Hydro Pump here. As Hydro Pump does connect with the Aegislash under the Rain, but it actually doesn't do over 50%. So based off that, I would assume that the Hydro Pump against Aegislash earlier wouldn't have knocked it out. Aegislash here goes for the Shadow Ball onto my Rotom Wash, and that's going to be enough to pick up the knockout. So Paul absolutely came back in this match, and that's what you do in a best of 3. You make the right adjustments. He didn't bring Salamence because he saw how useless it was in that first game. So wonderful, wonderful adjustments by Paul, and that's why he's one of the best players in the country and the world. And I know that going into game 3, I'm gonna have to play smarter than what I just did in that last game, because it was pretty dominated by Paul. So I switch out my leads completely, bringing Tyranitar and Aegislash. I figure he's gonna want to lead with Thundurus again, and fortunately enough, he brings the Ludicolo, which was what I was hoping to see there. So this works out perfectly for me. My Tyranitar comes in, threatens Rock Slide immediately, and Aegislash here doesn't take too much damage from either of his Pokemon. Of course, Thundurus could use the Thunder Wave for Swagger Aegislash though, so I know I still have to make the right plays here. So I'm actually really fearing one big play from Paul, and that's Thunder switching out into Politoed and scalding into Tyranitar immediately. I really can't afford to lose my Tyranitar this early on in the match, because obviously the Weather Wards have been a huge component of this match, and if I lose the Weather Ward and allow him to get Rain Up for the remainder of the match, Ludicolo beats my entire team. So I know I have to play safer here with the Tyranitar. I cannot afford for it to just get knocked out, and Scald there into that slot would be absolutely devastating. But I know Aegislash here kind of gets a free turn unless he swaggers the slot, but I figure he's probably going to want to Thunder Wave me, or go for the switch out and the Scald. So I bring in Salamence here. Tyranitar switches out first. Intimidate obviously doesn't help me, and I know I'm really playing, this is a huge risk right from the start, because he could potentially Thunder Wave that Salamence slot. So I see the Fake Out go into Salamence, and I was like, oh boy, he's probably going to Thunder Wave Salamence, and that's going to be really bad for me. But he Thunder Waves Aegislash, which is a huge relief for me here. Even though he paralyzes me, 75% chance to attack through instead of the 50% from Swagger. So Aegislash manages to get the Shadow Ball off, targets on that Thundurus here, dealing huge amounts of damage, and I actually get a critical hit. That was really, really fortunate for me there, because it means that Aegislash gets one less turn there. Now, Life Orb Shadow Ball does around 70 to 80% there, but with the Citrus Berry, he'd be able to heal back up to around 50%. So I would have needed another Shadow Ball, and with Aegislash there in the Blade form as well, I would have had to King Shield, maybe switch out, so it makes sure that he only gets one Thunder Wave off in this match. And fortunately enough, neither Salamence nor Tyranitar get paralyzed, and that is really, 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 really good for me here. So he brings out Politoed, and at this point I'm like, okay, I probably have this game won as long as, nothing crazy happens. All I have to do is make the safe switches, play smart, and with Rotom and Tyranitar in the back, I figure I can make the pretty safe double switch out here into Tyranitar and Rotom. I figure it's highly unlikely he's going to Giga Drain one of those slots. Worst comes to worst, he gets a Scald Burn, but I'm willing to risk that right now. I really need the stand up so Salamence can obviously finish up the game by getting double edges off and whatnot. So I definitely feel really lucky after that first turn, and I know RNG was in my favor, and I definitely want to just capitalize off that, take whatever was given to me and take full advantage of it. So This next turn, I just consider all my options, but I figure the best one is to just pull the switches because Aegislash could potentially, get fully paralyzed, and that means Scald would do damage. Tyranitar and Rotom, there's no better time to really switch it in here. Ironically, against a Rotom and Ludicolo, so not the best matchups as you'd imagine, but I figure, okay, if he does go for the Scalded Ice Beam with Politoed, he's going to be in a lot of trouble because then I can just Rock Slide Thunderbolt away, and then the Ludicolo will be in knockout range. So Ludicolo launches the Ice Beam here onto the Salamence slot, which is a good play because as you'll see next, Paul goes for the crazy move of Rain Dance with Politoed, and I did not see that coming. Despite me running Rain Dance on the Politoed I used on Road to Ranked a long time ago. And that is the one move that Paul could have gone for that could have gotten him into this match. And I am really shaken right now because now this means I have to switch my Tyranitar back out. If anything, though, I know that the Politoed here is forced to switch out as well, so I know that Ludicolo gets one attack off here, and I figure he might just go for the Scald onto Tyranitar. Worst case, he Giga Drains the Rotom, but like I said, I cannot afford to lose Tyranitar right now, and I know I've got Aegislash waiting comfortably in the back, so I can switch out into Aegislash. Scald's maybe a 2-hit KO, but still not that big of a issue right now, so I'm just going to pull the switch out here into Aegislash and just go for the Thunderbolt onto Politoed. Trying to get free damage off into whatever he switches the Politoed into. So Tyranitar switches out there, and that Rain Dance was so clutch for Paul. Basically completely turned the tide and the momentum there into his favor, as he's going to withdraw the Politoed. So I think Ludicolo here is probably going to want to just get free damage off and maybe predict the Salamence switch in. He does go for the Ice Beam here. So seeing the Ice Beam into that Aegislash slot indicates to me that he's really fishing for the switch right now. And I just really don't want him to get that prediction off correctly. So the Thunderbolt there does minimal damage against Aegislash, and you can see how bulky it is. So it's a real intense game at this point. And I know I'm ahead, especially with Salamence and Tyranitar in the back, but I really can't afford to make any mistakes right now. And as you see here, the stream schedule actually just randomly popped up from the commentating team, but we'll be back into the game in just a second. But basically at this point in the match, I know that I cannot afford to lose Salamence or Tyranitar. I need to get Tyranitar back into the game safely without getting knocked out. I need to make sure I'm basically in a point where I can eliminate Politoed or get the Sand up and let Sand is in my favor, because right now that's the most important thing. Salamence in the back, huge opportunity for me to win this match. So this is a really weird position for me to be in, and I figure that Paul's going to go for the prediction here. He goes for the Ice Beam onto Rotom, hoping that the Salamence switches in. I don't give it to him, and that works out perfectly into my favor. So I go for the Thunderbolt onto Aegislash. I double up onto that slot with a Shadow Ball, because I'm hoping that maybe his Aegislash won't target my Aegislash, and even if he does, maybe he won't be able to knock it out if he doesn't have enough special attack investment, but he manages to knock out my Aegislash in one hit, and that's a huge concern here. My Aegislash deals with his Ludicolo and Politoed relatively well, so the fact that he was able to get that knockout was really problematic for me, and now I'm actually feeling the pressure right now. I could switch into Salamence and then switch my Rotom out into Tyranitar, or I could just switch out into Tyranitar and try to bait the attack out right now. I figure if I bring in Tyranitar, his Ludicolo, has shown multiple times he's not going for the Scald into that slot. He has predicted me to switch out so many different times, and this is basically the moment and the game-defining turn, I would say. Unfortunately, I don't know whether his Aegislash has Wide Guard or not, but I figure at this point, he's not going to want me to just Thunderbolt the Aegislash and knock it out. So, unless Aegislash King Shields here, what I can do is I can just Rock Slide Thunderbolt here, and Ludicolo will take 50% of damage. So the worst possible play is if Aegislash switches out into Politoed, Rock Slide doesn't flinch Ludicolo or misses, and Ludicolo goes for the Scald onto Tyranitar. But Paul has been fishing for the switch the entirety of this match, and I figure, okay, he's really gonna have to, get everything right this game, or this turn. And so he withdraws Aegislash, and obviously my heart's pumping a little bit because I don't know what Ludicolo went for. But I know that right now, if I get the flinch, I just outright win the game. And even if I don't get the flinch, he's going to have to make the right prediction here. So Rain comes up now, I get the Rock Slide off, it fortunately connects with the Ludicolo, and that's huge because now I know Thunderbolt will knock out the Politoed. So I bring Ludicolo under 50%, Rotom gets the Thunderbolt out, so I eliminate Politoed, so now I know if he doesn't knock out Tyranitar, I will basically have this game won because I'll have weather control. And Ludicolo goes for the Ice Beam. You can see me celebrate a little bit there because I was so excited knowing that, now I can just switch Tyranitar out into Salamence and I'll be able to basically win the game. I just have to play my cards correctly right now, but if Tyranitar switches out into Salamence, even if he knocks out Salamence, Rotom and Tyranitar will have enough firepower to really win this game. So I just have to make the safest plays right now, and I'm just going to do that by switching out the Tyranitar. And even if Paul predicts the Salamence switch in at this point, there is not very much you can do because Tyranitar and Rotom close the game out. And I'm actually hoping, for him to Ice Beam and knock out my Salamence, because if that's the case, then I just get to come in back for free with Tyranitar, and then I can just Rock Slide or Assurance away, and Assurance a knockout on Aegislash, and my Rotom outspeeds his Ludicolo outside of range. So that last turn was basically the game-defining turn, whether he made the right prediction or not. Ludicolo scalding to Tyranitar slot, and, you know, obviously I didn't switch out because I was expecting him to go for the Ice Beam. He had been baiting the Ice Beam the entirety of the match, and it works out. But now I'm finally going to make the Tyranitar switch out, perhaps the most obvious switch out in the game, as I'm going to bring in Salamence, but I know that at this point, even if he Ice Beams that slot and knocks me out, I should have the game comfortably, not comfortably won, but won. He goes for the Giga Drain here onto Rotom Wash, which I am more than okay with, because it means that Salamence actually sticks around, but Ludicolo does manage to heal up to a comfortable amount. Procs Rotom Citrus Berry, so I'm going to heal back a decent amount. And now the question is, what did Aegislash go for? Hydro Pump here does connect with the Aegislash, so, you know, I figure I might just be able to get the knockout here right away. Unfortunately, I don't get the knockout, but do enough damage that Rock Slide / Assurance, you know, will be able to finish it off. So Aegislash here launches the Flash Cannon into a Salamence slot, so I was kind of surprised to see him not Ice Beam Salamence and Shadow Ball Rotom, but now I know the game is 100% one in my favor. Ludicolo is a Pokemon that most of the time carries Assault Vest, Fake Out, Ice Beam, Giga Drain, Scald / Hydro Pump, so it doesn't have Protect, and normally you can tell whether it has Protect or not if it doesn't go for the Fake Out. So I know that at this point, all I have to do is protect Salamence, Mega Evolve, switch out into Tyranitar, and then I can just Double Edge Thunderbolt to win the game. So as long as I don't make any careless plays, I have this game won. All I have to do is protect with the Salamence here, and the game is in my favor. So at this point, it's just making the, you know, safest plays that ensure you the match. And of course, it's a bit scary when you look at Salamence's HP bar, because I'm a couple of turns away from getting knocked out by Sandstorm. But I know his Ludicolo doesn't have Protect, so I don't have to worry about that. So I'm just gonna go for the safe Protect here with my Salamence, and Paul tries to, you know, get a knockout there with the Scald, but he goes for the Scald and the Shadow Ball, and Tyranitar manages to switch in pretty safely here. So now all I have to do is Double Edge and Assurance, and the game is won in my favor. So what an intense set between Paul and I here. I have to say I did get very fortunate game 3 there by getting the Shadow Ball critical hit onto Thundurus, preventing it from doing any more damage, but Paul played fantastically, and for how one-sided that first game was, you can see how much a best of 3 really shows the skill set of both players, because he was able to bring it back completely here and give me a huge run for my money. A really intense game 3 here, and I was making plays based off the fact that I know Paul's playstyle relatively well, and it fortunately worked out in my favor. But I mean, once again, I did get very lucky with that Shadow Ball critical hit onto Thundurus, but after I got that, I was like, you know what, I can't lose this match now, I have to capitalize off it. So Paul goes for the forfeit there, and I managed to win round 5 2-1. So I do manage to advance to 5-0 while Paul finishes 4-1. Both of us actually made it to day 2, which was really exciting, and Paul and I actually rematched in the second day of Nationals as well. But yeah, that's going to be it for this set between me and Paul. I hope you guys enjoyed this commentary. Let me know if it was insightful or if it was helpful at all. I hope you guys you know, took away something from it, and if you enjoyed this series at all and want to see more, please let me know in the comments below, because I would really like to make more of these videos. But yeah, that's going to be it for this analysis, guys. I'll see you guys next time. Alright, peace.